Greetings, podcast listeners, and welcome to another exciting episode of All Things Thor, Becoming an Imagineer, Part 9. Q's here with me. He's excited to hear this week's episode, and I know you are too. So I'm going to hand things over to Tom, let him continue his tale of working on Journey to the Center of the Earth at Tokyo Disney Sea, and hopefully share some more insight into the process of creating an e-ticket theme park attraction. So without further ado, once again, here's Tom with episode 9 of Becoming an Imagineer.
Well, welcome back. As they say in our last episode, I left you kind of with a little cliffhanger there, I guess. And, well, quite frankly, it was sort of a cliffhanger for me too when it happened in real life. You know, I want to remind everybody again that what I'm doing here is I'm doing what I would do if I were, let's say, going to a therapist and I was laying on a couch and I was recollecting exactly what I experienced without trying to be judgmental or anything like that. Just what I experienced and how I processed or tried to analyze what was going on at the time. I mean, we all do that with life, right? You know, sometimes we don't know what's about to happen, or when things happen, we don't know how to perceive it. And but in this case, what I'm kind of doing with this series is just telling you my perceptions, I guess my opinions, but my opinions meaning as I experienced it, and with no other agenda whatsoever. I don't want to make anybody look bad or good, to the point of overemphasizing one person over another that I've worked with over the years. I may here and there express a favorite person or so of mine who is inspirational, but for the most part, I just want to tell you what I experienced. And just so if you're ever thinking about similar situations in your life, similar careers, maybe even relationships, or if you ever wanted to become an Imagineer, this is what I experienced. And it may or may not have anything to do with how things are now at the company or just the way life is in general now. The world has changed, right? So, back to where we left off. Again, until this point, in my career and my time in Imagineering, I was pretty much in bliss, and nobody had ever said, "Stop doing what you're doing." You know, I just kept getting the wave of the flag. You know, like you're in a race and you're going around on laps, and they just keep going. Yeah, keep going. Yeah, you're second lap's great, third lap's great. Go, go, go. And I was getting really attached to this team, and couldn't wait to get to work every day. I used to lay awake at night, thinking and going through the ride in my mind. Until, as they say, and I repeat, until I got my first taste of getting my hands slapped hard by the big white glove of what I would discover was a political faux pas at WDI that I had committed. And now, again, nobody had educated me as otherwise. I was just being as good as I could be. I was just obsessed with making the greatest e-ticket attraction ever seen, and I was highly honored to be asked to do this, and then excited. But I did something that was very frowned upon. I used a talent that was kind of a exclusive claim of practice of another department that I didn't realize was the case. I sculpted. I sculpted. I say that in shame. And, well, I did it well. I was able to sculpt well. And people told me that. That's why that's one of the things I thought would be embraced. I mean, here I am, a guy who's doing drawings, paintings that are being used in the press for early releases of what this attraction was going to be like. I was doing paintings and drawings to describe the scenes. I was working on elevations. I was, designing characters, suggesting animations for the characters. I thought I was doing anything anyone could define as an Imagineer, or at least what I thought that meant, especially I kept thinking that Walt would probably have been pretty proud of me. And I think he would have been pretty proud of me. I think he would have come in and looked at what I was doing and maybe patted me on the back, maybe raised his eyebrow at a few things and said, well, you know what? I think maybe if you tried this or you did this, that's fine. I would have loved that. But this is what I thought I was doing. But so it ends up that I made this big faux pas called sculpting. And I don't even know how to kind of explain it as fully how it affected me, because it was such a shock, again, like I told you about the party analogy in the last one, but it's like it's like being a kid and you're playing and your mom comes up and slaps you in the face and you can't figure out what the hell you did wrong, and she tells you later, well, I told you not to, I told you not to play that close to Grandpa's workshop, before, and you did it, and so here you go. It just kind of catches you off guard. So I start asking around, and it didn't take long before I kept saying, I heard there was this murmur, in the team that by one or two of the project managers, that there was a little problem here, and that there was a department that was not very pleased with my activities, and I'm like, well, what are you talking about? And they said, well, the monster sculpture and the lava monster. And I go, well, I thought everyone loved it. I thought I thought it was getting really well received, and this particular person who was the vice president or lead of this project said, well, yeah, I fully agree about that part of it, but someone from another department has complained about you, and that they felt that you were overstepping your bounds and doing that. I go, what are you talking about? Well, what do you mean? And it was like, well, it's kind of a unsaid rule, I guess. But this other manager of this other department is upset and has gone to the president of Imagineering, and just kind of pissed off about you and what you did, and that you went ahead and sculpted something and and weren't given permission to sculpt, and I'm thinking to myself, what the hell are these people talking about? I would think they would be absolutely thrilled that as a communicator of creative intent and as the designer and storyteller of this ride, that I was able to communicate so clearly to everybody and be so clear on my intentions and ask for feedback and encourage, interaction, and that other disciplines could come in and look at what I was doing and say, hey, yeah, an engineer could come in and say, hey, that's great, but if you change this and that, it would be even easier to be able to engineer that so that we could support the weight of this appendage, or the way you've got this creature curved and everything. That's going to be a lot of stress on certain areas, and if you could change this and find a way to make this work, I wanted all that to happen. That's what I thought should happen. That's what I thought my job was, but so it turns out that I get the actual clear definition of what I did wrong, and that was that the manager of this other department said, that's definitely not your job. We're the sculpting department. We do 3-dimensional models and things like that, and that's our job, not your job. You do all the design and drawing and arm waving you want to do, but when it comes to that, the sculpting, that's us. That's that's not for you to do. And I thought, at first I was kind of pissed off. Of course, I was upset, and I couldn't understand this at all, why no one was standing up for me on the team that was, as far as the team manager wasn't saying, oh, wait a second, he can sculpt, so why shouldn't he be sculpting? He's the art director on this project, and the show designer on this project, and the concept designer on this project. We asked him to come up with his vision of this, so what's the problem? But he wouldn't do that. The next thing I know, I get the letter from the president of Imagineering. And it wasn't a letter that was written specifically to me. In other words, it didn't say, Dear Tom, it's been brought to my attention that this and that is happening. What the president did in this case was this mysterious letter that went to all the team members on the team that said, there's been an incident that I would like to bring to attention, and as a reminder to you all that when it comes to, representation in 3D sculpture and things coming out of the design intent of this project, that there is a specific department who has the responsibility to do that, and that you are not authorized to, be doing their job as you're creatively designing and developing this project. I'd appreciate it if you would, I'm paraphrasing, but of course, but something to the effect of, I'd appreciate it if everyone would respect this request and no longer be doing, these 3D. No matter how capable you are, these three-dimensional design guides, and let the department do their job. So he stood up for that person that headed up the sculpting department, or backed them at least. For some reason, I still to this day don't understand why. There was no logical reason in my mind why, except that the person just didn't like people messing with their turf. They wanted to be the one and only person who took things to three-dimensional manifestation. And I pissed him off. So it was, what was particularly degrading, I remember, is that my model was then kind of taken from me, my creature, and brought to the other part of the building where the sculpture department was, 3D design department. And they went so far as to, the team went so far as to set up a meeting where I could go in there and talk to everybody, talk to them about what my design intent was. But they took my model and they just stuck it aside on a table, and they had a sculptor there, one of their lead sculptors, look at it and completely re-sculpt everything that I had done from the ground up in their own clay and with their own hands, and make some minor little teeny changes, ones that I didn't even like, that I thought took away from the character a little bit that I had intended. But they did just enough pissing on it that, they could now claim they sculpted the three-dimensional maquette, as they call it, which is the smaller version of what would eventually be measured and built to full size. And I remember seeing a few days later, my whole model was just kind of shoved up on a shelf up in a corner somewhere. And I'm not going to lie to you, it was really hard to take. I mean, it hurt my feelings. It was humiliating, that I had done something that I couldn't understand was wrong in their eyes, I like people to like me, like we all do, and so now I've made potentially an enemy in another department because I overstepped my bounds of capability, and I felt like I was being accused of being a arrogant, show off, because I sculpted something, and that wasn't really commonplace for one guy to be doing all these different things. So I went and had to let it all just happen. And I remember that evening. Imagineering is in Glendale. And I don't know what time of year it was, but I remember that old familiar kind of semi-smoggy, salmon-colored horizon. When you'd walk out into the back parking lot of the Mapo building at at the Walt Disney Imagineering facility. And, it was getting to be close to dusk, and getting ready time to go home. And I remember how sad I felt. I remembered that thing I told you earlier. Remember when I was talking about Lee Thomas, my friend, Madame Leota, and when I worked for a short time with her at Disney stores, and she and I were not too far away from there in a building just next town over in Burbank, and it was the same kind of sky. It was that salmon-colored sky of the smoggy Los Angeles sunset, that was beautiful yet apocalyptic at the same time. And I can remember for a flash of a moment remembering, Lee and I talking, and that whole thing where Lee always told me that story about her always, after Walt Disney had passed away, how she would say in her mind, I wonder if Walt would have approved of what I'm doing right now, and if he had looked at this certain thing I was working on and say, hey, good job, Lee, like he always used to say to me and pat me on the back, good job. And I remember feeling very ashamed as I went to my car with my remaining clay that I had in my office that I knew I wasn't going to be using again anymore. And threw the clay in my trunk, and remembered that little momentary thing. And I thought to myself, well, Walt, I hope you liked what I did. I did my best, and things didn't work out like I guess I planned, but I can say I did my best. And the creature doesn't look that far off at all from what I originally designed. It was certainly had changed, but it was conceived by me, whether it had plastic surgery a little bit here and there or not. I conceived it, and it was going to be part of Disney history, and I was proud of that. And so, got in my car, aimed my car towards the security gate, and got out of the facility and hopped on the 5 freeway and headed towards that amber sunset. And as I walked to my car, I kind of felt like, well, I think this first experience tore a little hole in my pocket, and that was so full of pixie dust for so long, so far, and I could almost kind of imagine a little trail of pixie dust being left behind me, escaping through this little hole in my pocket. And I learned a lesson. I learned a lesson. And as Forrest Gump always said, that's all I have to say about that. More to come, all kinds of exciting things, all kinds of real stories about this whole experience. But I leave you with that at this episode, and I hope you're enjoying this. I hope you're feeling the realities and yet the magic all at the same time, because again, I want to say my experience as an Imagineer was almost a condensed version of life itself. You get really excited about things. You get excited about relationships that don't always go the way you want them to. You get excited about things You get things that happen in life that hit you like a baseball bat in the back of the head that you have to recover from. And the biggest thing I had learned from the beginning about that business was that as a designer, and especially my job that's supposed to come up with, I'm supposed to be the one that's, gets a blank piece of paper and has to suddenly get so excited about it that whatever I put on that piece of paper is going to be infectious and get everyone else excited about it. And if you have a disappointing experience, and you let it ruminate with you, you're not going to be able to make magic when you get up in the morning and go to work the next day. You have to let it go. And so I was starting to learn finally after, I don't know how many, I'd probably been in the business about 10 years by then, that you keep going, and because that's what you do. You make magic for all the world who can't. See you next episode. I guess you don't realize, the only person allowed to hold a drink in their left hand is either the host of this party or their direct family and close associates. Otherwise, you never hold a drink in your left hand. And you're going, WTF, and I didn't know. I still don't understand why, but I guess so. And then, and they take the drink out of your hand and they take it away. And you're standing there and you don't know whether to go home or just hang your head down and try to mosey through the rest of the night in shame. And it felt exactly like that. Like I'd done something. I couldn't figure out what I did. Well, turns out I had unknowingly done a faux pas. And the faux pas was, should I say, doing more than being capable of doing more than I should have displayed. Have you ever heard, even though it's not a union, it wasn't a union, it was Disney that I know of, Imagineering, but, have you ever heard those stories? This is my personal opinion. Stories about people who work for unions where if they're doing too much, on the job or getting too much done or able to do too many things and they just go about their job and they want to do a great job and make something as good as they can. And then they get pulled aside all of a sudden and by they're relatively new and they get pulled aside by, one of the older workers and of the union who says, "Hey, dude, slow down. You're a union. You don't. Why were you nailing up the drywall? You're not supposed to do that. That's not your job. And why did you sweep up the floor in so-and-so's room? That's not your job." And you're like, "Well, it just needed to be done." And I'm trying to, and they interrupt you and just say, "No, you do just this so much. Do this, and a certain amount of what was expected here, and don't do any more. You're not supposed to. It makes everyone else look bad, or or you're being boastful in your capabilities. You're being arrogant that you're able, that you're doing all these things that you're not supposed to be able to do. And essentially, that's what I felt some people were telling me. And some of my closer friends there kind of told me that when I started to share this story with them. My closer friends that had been at Imagineering for at least 5 years kind of chuckled and agreed with, or not agreed with, but started to tell me in so many words that my suspicions were not totally off. So now I'm going to conclude this episode. There'll be another one coming up right away. Not going to be as long of a wait because I'm about to record the second half. So these might be released very close together. They will be. And you'll find out now what I meant by this and and what happened to me. We'll see you in the next episode.